after this is done, we'll check alarms. So we'll have it'll be a class alarms where we'll have all the alarms, and then after that, we'll have probably maybe a blink LED class. Haven't decided if I'm going to roll that into the alarms class or have its own. And then we'll have a control class where we have, not control, we'll have an is on class that says, okay, what's on or off, or is the fan on, is the light on, what's on or off. So those are the future classes, but we're not there yet. We're still going here with it going simple. All we're doing is reading the BME data, and we're putting in highs and low values based on the data. That's it right now. Okay, structure's done. So we first go here, and we start to include, and I grabbed these from some of the other code that was provided by Arduino examples. This is mine. You need to include that. I'm not going through basics of C++. That's for you to go to. Go to Caleb's place or go online and Google. So you need to have some experience, if at least a little bit, to understand what I'm saying here. I'm not going to go through everything. That's for the BM8280, obviously. That controls reading and writing hardwired to the Grove. That's the RTC, real-time clock. And then you start creating objects from those classes. The RT clock, this is already a class that was set and created by the manufacturer that made which is GROWSS / the chip manufacturer. So you just instantiate an object based off their class. And then I instantiated an object here, and then instantiated a structure there, and I instantiated 2 more objects here. Objects being classes. And structures are structures. That may end up being a class too. And then I have places where I may add the others. These were, in the glue logic, a lot of this shit was working to some degree, but I backed off of it and I'm not using it because I need to get it working one step at a time. Here's the setup. Setting the COM port for this down here, for this terminal. Starting up the clock. Don't have this actually working yet, this part, but I did set that debug level for enable features to 1, so as we go through, I'll be able to get printouts. Eventually, this will be nice to have a button on the mobile app, like I said. This setup runs once, and then it goes into the loop. So we're basically getting the data, the time, and I'm printing off shit from the time. And that's, actually, we're just getting calibrations, what we're doing. We're calibrating the time clock. And this is also where you would want to set the clock time if you'd want to. You could do it from in here as well and comment it in and out. I did that from using the actual IDE from Arduino and their code. Because I have a battery, so I only have to do it once until the battery dies. And then I'll have to do it God knows when. Okay, anyway, loops, so it goes back into the loop. I go ahead, so let's get the time. Print the shit out. Let's get our current values, and that would be all 3 of those values, temperature, pressure, and humidity. So first thing I did up here, right here is, this is the instantiated object from the class that I set up here. And so everything has a scope local to itself to some degree as you go down into the function calls. So this is the global scope of current values, and then you run the code, and then I'm passing the entire object enable features because I set it up here, the debug flag, and I want to use that debug flag to print shit out when I want to. So we go into read BME 280. And, we have to have our includes because we're using library for that. We're setting some shit with it. We need that for, I believe, for the I2C, and then my structures because that's what we're using. We know this function call is a current values class. That's what that is. It's the class. We're going to be passing that enables features that I talked about, and that is the class for that. This enable features is local to this function though. Okay, so what you're doing is you're creating a temporary class in here, and temporary objects, this and this, and you're pulling the information you need out of the class from this one, which is basically right now the debug flag, to get your job done. So you create two temporary classes, initialize to make sure that it's working, get the pressure, get the humidity, and get the temperature. And notice it's the same class, just different variables in that class of current values, and that's the temporary class right here. And then once you get all that, and I have more code here to do some calibration, because at the end of the day you have to calibrate the sensors, but right now we're just trying to read them one step at a time. Once it all works, then I can come back to the calibration, and I've got videos. Go back and you can see how I use Microsoft Excel to create these equations based on data that I've taken over time. Same goes for humidity. And I already got these up here. And then so some of this you can ignore to some degree right now. And then of course I have the debug flag on. So if it's true, and it is because it's set to 1, then we go ahead and print these values out to make sure that the function is working. And same goes for here. And what's weird is I tried to use namespaces. That is some of the limitations with this Arduino, it looks like. I was trying to use namespaces using the standard namespace and cout, and inlines and all that, and it just wouldn't compile. It didn't understand it, and I had a hard time finding an easy solution to use namestations. So I went back to what their library reference uses, and that's the old school C-like serial.print. So that's why if you look at this and you go, why are you using that? That's because Arduino does not natively support namespaces, it looks like. And that's why you'll see some of these, not on this one necessarily, but you'll see IOStream and shit commented out because it was working. I had it all working with my previous test app where I had only where I was using the main function call, right? And it wasn't Arduino-like, it was just C++. But when you switch over, you got to modify. Okay, anyway, so all that, and then I print these two out, and this will be removed because it works now. And then you take that current values that's temporary inside this function, and you pass those values, the whole class, back up to this current values. So now this current values has the temperature and the humidity and the pressure all in it. So we're filling this class up right here. We're filling this class up here with all the values. Well, we're filling the object up, I should say. We're filling the object up that we instantiated right here in this scope. So, and then these aren't debugged yet. I just threw those in because this is when I was really having trouble with the BME 280 and trying to figure it out. And I got it figured out though, so that not big deal. Read the moisture, print out the moisture. And this way I know, like right here, I know, hey, I'm in the actual GROWSS NO, and this is the value there, because make sure everything gets passed right, and it's working. It'll be removed and cleaned up. I won't need that for once I'm done. Okay, so we got temperature and soil, and the next thing is high and lows. And let me show you moisture here. Moisture is pretty simple kind of thing. Same thing, current values class. I bring in 2 integers, I pass them in, and then of course that enable features again. And these are basically which pins that I'm going to read on the Grove hat. Which ones are they? And I leave this because I want it to be generic in case I want to use this, because I have 2 moistures, right? So these values are going to change. Could, but what if I wanted 4 moistures, right? I could add 2 more and make it real simple. Create a local class and object. I instantiate the local object given the class. I read from the sensor pin, and I attach it to the local soil moisture value variables, and then I print out shit based on my debug flag, and then I return those values again. So now we're returning the current values of moisture 1 and 2. So now we've filled up this entire current values object with all of the moistures and temps from here. Basically, all of this is now filled up, an object of this. I know it's confusing, objects and classes, but an object is made from a class, and a method is the action, if you would, action verbs, if you will, for the object. So we get that, and then we print out, and it passes those in, and instead of current values, we're doing high and lows, so it's filling up all the high and lows. So here's the work I was talking about, where I tried to use C out and shit, and it didn't work. So it's a high and lows class, and it's going to pass in. And this is where it's a little different than the other one, because this one I need to maintain and retain those values. I don't want them to go away. So it might look a little confusing, but I'm actually first taking what this high lows that's at this level. I'm like, okay, we're going to pass it in here along with the current values that I just grabbed. Boom, because I'm going to need those, and I'm going to need to know what the previous high and lows were, so I know what the next high and lows are, and I need to debug. So boom, and then we go into the high and low values, and I pass in the high lows from up above, and current values from up above, hierarchically up above, and then the enables for the debugging. And then down here, I go right straight to it, and I can already tell you as I'm going through this, see, I'm learning as I'm fucking telling you guys shit. That's how great this shit is. I don't believe, now that I see this, because I had forgotten that I started doing this, I don't have to instantiate a local highs and lows, because it can grab it already and replace it, which is really cool, from up above, from the because we're passing it down. So when it's midnight, we set what the current values are so they don't go to 0. They'll stay at 0 till midnight. We'll have to change that on the setup as well to pass the current values. Still work to be done. We're not, work in progress. So the current values, if this temperature now, the current temperature is higher than what our high temp was, that's why I needed to pull this high lows in, then we're going to take that temperature and we're going to now call it the new high temp. And this high lows high temp, I'm not quite yet sure exactly how this is working, but it appears to be working without having to use this. So it must be, since I'm on this side of the equation, it's passing it to the main equation. Yeah, I think what's happening is, now that I'm looking at that, you guys comment below if you know. I think it's just instantiating it automatically for me. So I may put that back in just for a clarity's sake, because I'm still returning something. So that'll be my next step to play around with. Do I need to return it? When I go and look at examples, this is how the examples say to do it. So that's why I was doing it this way. I'll probably stick with this. The examples online were pretty good, and I went to more than one to make sure that it wasn't just one person. Okay, all right, you get that. Current values, we pass it. That's the temp for high temps. These are the low temps. print them out if the debug flag's set. Same thing for humidity, current humidity, high humidity, print it out. Same thing for moisture, print it out. For 1 and 2, this is the second one, print it out, and then return high lows because that's what we filled up all of these with. What are the high and low values? Okay, I know that's a lot, guys. There's a lot here. So let's see what happens if it runs. And I'm still adding to this as well. I've got more code to write to add to this. Like, for example, right here, I only have temperature. I need humidity and pressure. So I'll show you a little bit of that. But let's run it real quick. Actually, let's not. Let's show you how this works. This is one of the nice things and the reasons why I like this IDE. So I'm going to do. I got high humidity, so let's do low humidity. So since I've got all these done, pre-saved and right, it knows about them. So if I say high, it automatically says, oh, you're talking about the high-lows object, huh? Hit enter, boom, done. Hit dot. Okay, here's all the variables for this object. Which one do you want to use? Well, I want to use low. Now I could move my cursor to it, or I could just keep typing, and as I type, it's going to try to move it, and eventually, boom, that's all you have left. Enter, done. Equals, current, it knows about current values. Enter, done. And we want to make it humidity. See, and it already knows, hey, you already selected that. Done, enter. See how quick that was? Now, I made it slower because I'm explaining it, but once you get going, you can just knock these out. High, lows, dot, high, press, equals, current, dot, press, high, dot, low, press, equals, current, dot, press. You see? Try typing that in an Arduino. Here's another thing I like about it. It doesn't necessarily really apply for what I'm doing here, but I can show you how it's done. Let's say I've got these too far. And we'll manually do it right now. And I'll show you what's up, which is really cool. So I need to come back to here. Well, I could go one at a time, just like I just did to tab them. Or I can use Shift Option and the cursor, and now I can do a vertical select. And I can say I want to move all of those at the same time. Boom. And they're still grabbed, so I can tab them and I can move them. If I want space, it does not matter. You can do the same thing if you wanted to select, I wanted to change all these to some other value, like current values. It'll do that as well. So it's really cool, and this is a feature that I really do like about this IDE versus the Arduino. Okay, let's see if this fucking thing will run. Another thing that's kind of buggy with this, sometimes this down here, this rate will change, and sometimes it won't go into the serial monitor, and you may have to come up here to the command palette and manually launch it, and it'll say open serial monitor. Boom. We're going to try it and see if it opens for itself. A lot of times once it gets going and everything's working, it continues to work. But if you get out of it or get into it or you do something different, I will say, then it tends to not work as well. Everything has its issues, right? Okay, so we're ready. We've got it saved. This shows that there's nothing to be saved. Over here is where they put in the buttons that launches the other IDE for Arduino, and there's a verify, so if you want to just check your code and not upload it yet, and then there's the upload, which does the verification and then uploads it and then runs the code and then launches the serial monitor. So let's see if I'm brave. Let's upload. So it's going to start and it's going to launch the Arduino IDE in the background. And I'll just bounce away from that because we don't really care about that window. We care about this one. And it's a little slow on the uptake, but that's okay. The more shit you have, and I don't have the path set, so it's even slower. So now it's verifying, showing you how much of the data it's using, and now it's uploading it. Boom. And now it happened to open the serial port for me. Boom. Which if it didn't, I would go up here and hit View, Command Palette, open serial monitor, and then make sure that the baud rate was set properly down here to whatever baud rate you set in your setup right here. You can go really high. The data isn't that fast. We don't need it that fast. So, okay, so let's see here. We first come through, and this is what we got in the setup. And then we start reading out, and this is coming from the read BME 280 function, so we know it's reading out okay. And it's reading out. I'm not sure about that value. I may have to check on that. That seems not right. I mean, there might be some code issues with that. Okay, and then pull off that again, and then this is the current temp, the moisture 2, because I have that paper towel wrapped around it, and then it told me that the moisture's done, and then we go in again, so that now we're going into high lows because it's at the bottom here, and first thing it's going to do is go and grab moistures and temps, and I haven't done pressure yet, but we'll get to that. And then so it says, okay, current value is for temp is 72. It's higher than what the previous was, so we'll set that to high, and that was the debug is done. Now we do humidity, it's high, and then high lows debug is done for humid. Then soil moisture, nothing on the first one yet. Second one, high lows are done. And it just keeps repeating. It never ends, never ever stops, unless there's a reset of the board or the power goes out. So there you go. That's what we got going on right now. This is as far as I am, and as you can tell, I've already, even now, as I was talking to you, I've got work to do yet before I move to the next step. Don't rush to the next step. Get what you want done and nice and cleaned up before you move on to the next problem to solve. And the next problem to solve will be checking for alarms. And but I got plenty of work left to do to finish this up before I'm ready for that. But this is how I use my workflow, and this is how I do it. And I hope it's beneficial for you all. Please check out the VS Code IDE. I think with a little bit of work, you'll find that it's pretty useful. And there's so much more that you could do that I don't do with it. You can write scripts and all kinds of shit. I use it for what I need. I'm not a CS guy. I'm an ECE guy. I get it working for what I need. I do like it, though. It's great for Python, too. And see how everything's color-coded. But you don't get that when you open up the Arduino. You don't get the nice, pretty, as nice, anyway. And just the filling in of information. Oh, my God. So much quicker to write code. All right. Anyway, I'm done babbling. It's been a long one. I'll come back for another update. Won't be as long as this one, but I'll come back for another update as I move along and get it further along. And I'll have been past most of the rest of it because it's basically checking alarms and controlling. And then I'll worry about the email and all that other stuff after that. First we'll get all that done, get all that working, then work on some Blink, then finish up with the email and the text, because you got to have Ethernet and internet capabilities for that anyway. So it makes sense to go in that. That's kind of the workflow I'm going to move forward with. All right, this is Cannabis Reviewer. Sorry for the long talk. Hope you enjoyed it. As I always say, please subscribe. I say that every issue, every video, everything. Please subscribe, click the bell, post a comment, like. You know what to do. Bookmark the page. That'd be cool. Whatever you want to do. Please come back. Check my shit out. And as I always say, happy smoking.